What's up, everybody? My name is Andrea Kelly. I am with the organization Ready for Life, Reclamation and Restoration Ministries here in Baton Rouge with the Ready for Life project. I have a special guest with us today. We are going to be talking about the crime and the violence and everything that's going on in Baton Rouge. So, what's your name and everything that you do? Introduce yourself.
All right, my name is Jonathan Bell. Um, I'm employed by a big employer here. I care not to name for right
Okay,
now.
that's fine.
And I also do real estate investing, so that's one of the things. And I'm a native of Baton Rouge.
Okay, for how long? You been here all your life?
All my life, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. So, we are doing efforts in the city of Baton Rouge, mostly in the Brookstown, Scotlandville area. We are trying to get the community together and really come up with a strategy to help prevent some of the violent crime going on in Baton Rouge. What are your thoughts in regards to those efforts or in regards to the crime in Baton Rouge, period?
Well, for the majority of my life, the crime has pretty much been the same, but it's all related to the same thing. Like they have all the data points to know why it's the way it is, and it's to me, it's directly correlated to the economic situation in Baton Rouge. It's always been the same thing. So even though the cost of living has went up, the income hasn't went up, and the job opportunity, exposure hadn't went up. So if you look at the map where all the crimes take place, you can actually pinpoint where the crime is going to be at just by what's going on there. So I don't think the efforts. I'm not sure they're serious about the efforts because if I can figure out where the issue, the root of the problem is, I'm sure they can. But crime here is, first of all, it's a drug hub. That's number one. And number two, it's tied into the same things that they're stripping away from, which is going to be like your education. We got like the side of town where you see the highest crime spike. You're going to see the same thing. Lack of education. You're going to see lack of opportunity, lack of jobs, and then
Resources.
the income. It's the resources. So what happens is we get into a situation where we try to address the symptoms instead of the root cause. Like if I go to the doctor with a nosebleed, they're just not gonna stuff cotton in my nose.
Yeah.
Is it a tumor? Is it my blood pressure spiking? Like what's going on? So not only the fact that it's profitable because we have for-profit prisons here in Louisiana, also the fact that the solution is always let's get more police, more police, more policing, which is more funding, which is they directing funding in the wrong direction. You can't spend money at a problem on the symptoms of the problem and not address the root of the problem.
So, although the government and the state officials and the leaders of Baton Rouge, that is having them as an aspect into nonprofits and the efforts and everything, that is important. But as far as the community is concerned, we were having an interview earlier, and they were basically saying how it starts with the parents as well.
Right, but so that is true to an extent. So there's some accountability there, but you got to understand if I'm a parent, I just happen to, so I'm not so far on my high horse to where I moved to St. George that I don't understand what they're going through. If the average rent in the city is $1,300-$1,400 a month to stay in the worst situations
Yeah.
possible with limited resources, as a parent, I have to focus my attention on trying to survive, just basic survival. So I think what people do, they get so high on their high horse that they forget that what's normal for me, which would be mortgage and rent and car insurance. We have the highest insurance in the country. We have some of the worst rent, the highest, some of the lowest income household. So as a parent, if you're dealing with that, it's kind of hard to focus on both. Also, exposure and being um, you limited resources going to school. It's costing me a lot to send my kids to school, and they go to.
Yeah.
I mean, they're gifted, but they go to a public school. So if I'm struggling with the kind of income I make, imagine what somebody that's making average in Baton Rouge $20,000-$30,000 making. So we're looking at is say parenting, but by the time that person gets to say high school or in the teenage years, they're so far gone now. They basically given up. It's a slow suicide per se. And the reason I can speak on it because I've been on both sides of that fence.
Yeah.
I've been where I was like, okay, well I'm hopeless, and then the least resources you have, and the more hopeless you get, the more extreme your chances you're willing to take to get to where you need to go. So that's what you're dealing with. A lot of them kids, like I can pull up on any block in Baton Rouge and say, man, y'all want to work? You want to do this? You want to do that? And they're like, yeah, but the jobs that's available is not enough to even survive. So they just kind of out in the wild. And once there's an imbalance in resources, even like for instance education, it's kids. Like I have a lot of friends in education, principals, teachers, the whole nine, and these people having to use their own resources doing simple stuff like feeding kids. It's kids that if it didn't have summer programs of food, they won't even eat. So what that does to the psyche of a teenager who's out, it doesn't matter what my mom or my dad is doing. So, and some of the worst of the worst people I knew came from two-parent homes. So if you look at, if we want to address the problem, you can look at the 70802, 70805, right? You take let's say you take 100 black kids from that area, inner city black kids from that area, and then you take 100 black kids from the area I live in, the St. George, Tiger Bend, that area. They're still the same age range, and they still have facing in the same city. But why is the murder so high? And is it that the parents in St. George are just that so much better? Or am I more disciplined on my? No, it's because I have the resources and we have the facilities and the opportunity is different on my side. My kid at 10 years old isn't no different from a kid in Easy Town on 31st Street. The difference is that the kid on 31st Street is facing an entirely different environment.
Circumstances.
So we keep addressing once you far gone, that's it. You know, I've been there. I've been on the, I understand that I'm an anomaly. So I'm not so high on my high horse to think that, okay, well, I went to college, I made it, I was exceptional student, high ACT scores, college graduate. I understand that that's an anomaly. I'm an exception to the rule. But the majority of us that was around, it was the only opportunity you had was to try to survive.
So you're basically kind of talking about another aspect of why the crime is so high. The lack of resources, lack of income, forcing these kids to really give up hope.
That's where you're at right now.
Like give up hope and, getting a job. It's like, why go to college?
Why?
Why do anything if I'm just going to get a job that's not even going to help me pay my rent?
Right.
So you're saying that's an aspect as well.
That's probably going to be your biggest aspect because a lot of those kids, if you talk to those educators that's dealing with these kids in these schools, they'll tell you that's a really good kid. Sometimes those kids are exceptionally smart. It's just that the environment they're facing, this is where we're at now. We're making efforts to make it even worse. Like they'll close schools, they close the hospitals. They got big employers in the city, which I won't name. They won't even hire from Baton Rouge. They hire from Mississippi, Lafayette. So when you got a significant amount of money and tax dollars flowing into that section or that section of the city, then you see the crime rates go down. When I was growing up, government South Baton Rouge, that was the South. That was the one of the roughest parts of being. If you look at that stretch from like Acadian going towards Catholic High and all that, they started pumping significant dollars in there. You start seeing businesses like Roca's Pizza and Elsie's and French Truck. So it's once you start seeing that, the value of the property, just the same properties that have been around there. The only difference is they start putting those resources over there to make the area more livable and attainable, and there's more resources for its job. So you saw the crime deter off, but the areas that you do see the high crime is because the kids are they're out in the wild.
They're out with basically nothing to do.
Now, so I guess the reason we're here is trying to see where's the solution. Where do we get to the solution? Well, the first solution is since the leaders we have, it's going to be a progress to that, a time factor to that. So it took time to create that situation, to create a for-profit prisons and to create quotas and over policing of an area to cause them to be in a situation where they're like, okay, I'm hopeless. So to unwind that, we understand there's going to be some voting the right people in to put the resources in the area. They got infrastructure that needs help. There's food deserts. There's all those major things. But we got major churches in the areas, 501(c)(3)s.
Yeah.
So in the 60s, we have to, that's why they always teach us to remember history, because we repeat some things and we can actually find the root of some problems. So if you look at historically, a lot of it started here with T.J. Jemison, a lot of the pastors, and Dr. King, where the pastors were the power structure. So we have pastors that would spend $300,000-$400,000 on a Bentley for pastor's appreciation, but 300-400 grand to do training at that facility. That's what the church was then. Now it's more so a prosperity thing. It's just been redirected, and that was intentional. That's, you can pinpoint with receipts how did that happen, who were the curators of that transition.
And you saying that's happening within the city of Baton Rouge
In
right
Baton
now?
Rouge right now, you go like Living Faith is right there by, I'm calling names. Living Faith is in Brookstown. You're talking about $1 million tax-free facility right there. There's a significant job shortage in skilled workers. If you can funnel money into that neighborhood to programs and after-school programs and help the people in that community, there's no reason that they should have that much money, even with some of your big employers. It's like on Scenic, you got IBM, you got Exxon, you got all these big employers that those significant tax dollars could go into developing that community. If you look at, we even got to go that far. We can go to like St. James and Ascension, where they had like Shell Guys, Marathon, all those places that's pumping significant amounts of money into that community. And they have a clause where they guarantee those jobs to those people. You see better schools, you see better roads, you see lower crime. Same thing happened in the 60s with Atlanta. Hartsfield-Jackson guaranteed that 57% of that College Park, the biggest airport in the world, was in a predominantly black community. But they guaranteed that they made it, the government officials guaranteed that 57% of those contracts and jobs and going forward is going to go to that community. And when you see that, you see a bustling community, lower crime, you see more jobs, you see more money, tax dollars. All of our tax dollars are made in the city of Baton Rouge, but they're pumped out on the outskirts, your Centrals, your Zachary's.
And they're not being funneled into areas like Brookstown and
Right.
things like that. So with the Ready for Life program, in which the nonprofit that we have those resources for some of those youth. We have, like the GED program. We've partnered with BRCC. We've partnered with Oshner to get them some training and things like that. So for this particular program, we want to encourage people to come to our community forum to gain, like knowledge like you have, because this is a perspective that we didn't necessarily even think of, as far as the business and the real estate and everything like that. We just see it, from different angles. But do you think that coming together, getting the people in that specific community to come together to a community forum and just to come together in general would be beneficial to the efforts?
Well, you got a direct pipeline. You got the schools that's in that area. You have the Strumers, you have the Capitals, you have GO, you have Madison Prep. You have all those schools that's in those areas, that's the high crime areas. You can do actually get with the teachers and the principals and the officials there, find out where your problem students, because they know what those kids dealing with. I've donated shoes, I've donated clothes, money, food, the whole nine to them, so they know where those problems at. If you can get those kids into programs, but you can get them. That's where your bigger problem is. It's like you're 16 to 24, or even younger in some cases. So you have another data point or another source to say, well, where's the problems at, and you can train those kids for $18, $20, $30 hour jobs. Those jobs are available, but the skill's not there. So they got those programs. It's fine. They got a bunch. We just went to a forum, a deal where it was this billions of dollars funneled into Louisiana for part of the infrastructure bill. I'm aware of everything. I didn't even know about it. So it's a public-private knowledge thing. So it's the fact that those kids don't even know that's available. If we had more people that's in those fields, we can pinpoint where the job shortages are, and where those good-paying jobs are, and we can train those kids to fill those positions. We just don't do it. We just leave. You go to high school, you start thinking, well, okay, well, what am I going to do? And we don't have those. So we can send them to college. We can pay for those programs. There's a lot of ways to curtail those kids. The teachers and the administrators at those schools know exactly who those problem kids are. I have friends, teachers, all the people you see in the news. Like, oh, that's one of my babies. That's one of my. They knew that prior to that's where that was going to land.
And we actually, one of our partners is basically working with some of the actual young men who are committing these crimes. So we're trying to funnel them into the program. It's voluntarily.
Right.
So, we are doing efforts into trying to, convince them to be into these programs. We're working with the parole office and everything like that to get specific and get more detailed in who we're actually called to serve. So, do you think that those efforts to really pinpointing and, getting more fine detailed into who the youth actually is, do you think those efforts are, I guess, noble in a sense?
Yeah, but I guess when you put it that way, I guess it's just got to be more. You have to expand it. You have to get it and try to get it on the front end instead of the back, with the back end instead of after the fact. So a lot of times they wait till the guy got an assault or a robbery or a burglary and then try to fix the problem. But you can get to the root of it. I mean, obviously you can fix those problems. There's a lot of guys now that I know that got convictions or they got trouble with the law or whatever, and they call me and ask me, man, somebody hiring, and I'll do anything, but they don't have the skill set for me to be able to put them in there, recommend them there. So if you can do an apprentice program, if you can do a training program, also the other thing is they have to see that it wasn't until I got older and I started saying like, what we had to see was the street guys that had all the money, that had the nice things, but getting old, becoming older and being in the professional world and the corporate world, I'm like, well, look, I got friends that graduated with me that's driving the nice cars, and I'm like, whoa, man, I could have went to a trade school, or I could have been an electrician. A lot of them kids don't even know that an electrician. We got a shortage of electricians. They don't know that an HVAC person will make $200,000-300,000 a year, and it's 100 degrees now, and it's, we in April, so. If they were able to see it and have more mentors, we need to tune into that too. Have people that's actually doing that, because they keep all that information to themselves. They stay away from it. But as kids are visual, they soak up everything.
And that's what we're doing as well. We're looking for mentors, like men like yourself. We're looking to have those mentors to be a better influence for those actual men. So that's something that we're also offering as well. Do you think that there's some type of pushback in regards to getting mentors for programs like this?
Yeah, because a lot of times I talk to people that's older than me or just in the same field as me, and they'll say their idea is that it's too far gone. That they think it's innate, and it's not innate.
Yeah.
But they have to see those. They think that the violence is they're just that way. They're lost. There's no hope. But if I printed out the map of the where most of the homicides took place in the city, and if you print out the same map of where the income is or where the jobs are, and you lay them on top of each other, they all match. Your high crime areas is where your low income at. Your lower jobs, your lower education, your better schools is going to be the same area. So there's a correlation, but a lot of those guys, because they watch it on the news, it's framed the certain way in the media, that the kids are just lost, but the people that's on the front lines, like your teachers, so your teachers are able to do that. So if you tap into the high schools and some of the even the middle schools, you can get a direct pipeline to kind of bridge that gap between the kids are really not that bad. It's the fact that once they're so gone, it's too late at that point.
Yeah.
So and they're only seeing the outcome. They're not seeing the story or what led up to that point.
Or the possibilities
Or
of
the
what
possibility
could be.
of what because there's a lot of people that, and y'all may interview people that started off in a certain spot and they were just given an opportunity. I got friends that's in different fields, from painting to boat captains to all kind of different careers that started off the same place these kids are. So it's just there's no increase. They want to say there's an increase. I have all the data from all the way from the 90s. It's always the same thing. The only thing that changed was the income and the cost of living and the population, obviously. So all of it line up. But I think as far as the program goes, if you take anything from this, I would be tapping into the church to not just the church, because the church will take a vague approach to it. Like, well, okay, we'll pray for the community. We'll send some old men out in the community, just to, basically, you know, talk to the kids in a general way. But if you actually provide a way, that you can sponsor somebody to say, hey, you good at this. They got we go to the barbershop all the time. You see one of the most street dudes ever. He's so excited about his new job. Man, I'm telling you, I'm good at this. I'm good at that. They got a lot of talent. But if it's more streamlined and specific, and you can offer those programs, you can lower that violence. Like they don't have an out, and there's got to be some awareness to bring that. They don't know it's there. They got a lot of programs to help, but they just don't know it's there. So I think the church and the schools is going to be your pipeline to bridge that gap, because you can catch the kids early, and the church have the resources, and they're in those neighborhoods that we see these problems.
Well, you've definitely brought a lot of insight, a lot of wisdom and knowledge, even for us in our programs and everything like that. And for anyone who's watching, if you have, any information or any wisdom that you'd like to share, make sure you go to our website, www.rrministriesinc.org. We want mentors. We want people who have transitioned from where these young men are right now to where they are. So we thank you for talking with us. Wish it could be longer.
Yeah.
Because I'll sit here all day.
Yeah.
I'll sit here all day.
It's a lot more layers to the whole thing, but
Yes, layered.
a lot of layers to peel back. But the crux of it is the opportunity, and what we watching in real time it's basically a slow suicide. It's a kamikaze mission by these kids that's doing this, and they don't feel like they have an out. That's what you're watching. So.
Okay. Thanks for talking to us.
Oh,
We appreciate your time.
All right.